Hey guys, so in this lesson we're going to talk about legs, also known as break values or break levels, okay? Um, I see a lot of people marking them wrong. Even the most advanced guys, they should stick around until the end of the lesson because a lot of people, they don't know why their break levels are getting hit because it defeats the entire purpose of marking these levels if they're getting hit all the time. And they're not supposed to be getting hit, right? Because we put our stop losses below these levels. So I myself struggled with it for a very long time, and a lot of people they mark them based on the color of the candles, right? And that's not the proper way to mark these levels. Whether it be a distribution candle or an accumulation candle on either side of the chart, it does not matter at all. Okay. So first of all, what is the purpose of a leg? The purpose of a leg is to show strong momentum in a particular direction, and it also shows you the perpetual ladder in that direction, right? We mark them usually to know the bottom of the range, and hold levels or ranges, which is a topic for another lesson. They're basically capital injection points, also known as support or resistance levels to most people, right? They protect these legs. Okay. Now, how do we mark them? We find the biggest rejection candle, starting with the biggest time frame available. Okay. Well, of course, we will look at some examples, and we will learn how to mark them properly in this lesson. They usually are closer to the trends. Okay. So let's visually look at what I'm talking about. So imagine a move going in a particular direction like this, right? So what are break levels? All of these levels, okay, they would be marked as break levels on our charts because they're the bottom of the range. They're the ones that generated that momentum in that particular direction, right? And the moment they're hit, it's not going to be laddering in that direction anymore, technically, right? So, if we mark a trend over here, all of these levels that are closer to the trends, you know that they are your break levels. Okay, so there are several different ways of looking at it. Rather, if you want to look at it in terms of the trend, or if you want to look at it in terms of the level that generated the upward momentum, or if you want to look at the bottom of the range, because the small little peaks that get created over here, of course, if you flip the chart upside down, it's the exact same thing on the opposite side for short or sell position, right? But I'm only going to discuss on one side of the chart just so the beginners there they don't get confused, because it takes a little getting used to for the beginners to look at charts on either side. So for that purpose, I will only talk about the long side, right? So these small peaks within here, within these big valleys, right? And this is a valley, right? This is a valley. So these small peaks, these are the capital injection points, right? So we buy these, right? Oops, these are where we actually make our purchases, right? So right here or right here, right? These are what we refer to as ranges, right? So of course that's a topic for another lesson, but just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what we mean when we say that these ranges or hold levels, they protect these legs. So you see all of this range, all these little peaks. You could have another very small peak within here, right? So everything within here that is supposed to be protecting these legs. Okay, that's all you need to know for right now. So let's actually look at some examples. So again, starting with the biggest time frame, right? Because these rejection candles, they'll be very apparent and more accurately marked if you start with the biggest time frame available. So obviously you will start with a monthly time frame. If you don't have enough information on monthly, go to the weekly, go to the daily if needed. Even you could go to the 12-hour and 4-hour if needed, right? It all depends on the type of the range you're looking at, because a more recent part of the range will not be apparent on monthly or weekly, right? If something got created probably like a day ago, you cannot go to the monthly and say, oh, that's my leg, right? Because for a monthly leg to be created, you have to probably wait several weeks, right? So now let's put all this stuff away and let's look at some examples. Okay. So I've cut this with the replay tool over here because I think it's a good spot to identify some legs. Okay, so again, starting with the biggest time frame. So the monthly at the very bottom, I can clearly see it's a big rejection candle, right? It seems like it touched whatever was within here, and it started this upward momentum, very strong bullish move towards the upside. So that's right off the bat super clear. That definitely is a leg, right? And then there's another one over here, not as big as this, but definitely is a leg nevertheless, right? Because it looks like it touched something and it moved up. So again, the levels that create momentum in a particular direction, right? And also they look like these big rejection candles, like you see. That's why I call them legs, because you see like this big leg that it created, this big wick that it creates. That's what I'm referring to as break valleys, because a lot of people might mark something like this. Now it could be a break level on smaller time frames, but the actual leg that needs to be broken to invalidate this entire range. So remember those small little valleys, small little peaks that I talked about. So this is actually a peak, right? So this entire peak, or this whole level within here, right? This is what we refer to as a whole level. This is what protects this leg, right? So this leg must not be touched. If it gets touched, that's ideally not a trade we want to be in anymore. Okay, so usually people put their stop losses right below these legs. That's why it's very important to know where to put where to mark your break levels. Okay, so then I also see a big momentum created by whatever it touched over here. Now over here on this monthly time frame, it just shows me that this is what generated the momentum upwards, and just it's a continuous big strong bullish move, right? But from the way this big wick looks, I'm pretty sure that if we go to a weekly, because we're currently on monthly, right? If we go to a weekly or a daily time frame, I'm pretty sure this will be a leg. There will be a range within here to buy. Something like this, right? There could be some distribution candles within here. So on the monthly time frame, that's another one. But of course I've cut this with the replay tool, so I'm probably not going to mark this on this time frame. It might be more visible on smaller time frame, but if this is what it looks like, you can clearly tell it touched something and had a huge rejection over there. So possibly there's something over here. I'll mark it, but I'm pretty sure it'll be more apparent, more clear on smaller time frames. So now let's go to smaller time frames, right? Because we have to switch between time frames to identify these levels more correctly. So starting with the bottom, did we mark them correct? Yes, definitely. This looks good because the bottom of the range, right? And we have this entire range over here, right? This definitely was a very strong bullish momentum that after that big dump happened to 3,900 or 800 or whatever, right? And then it created that big strong momentum on the upside. So now you could have other levels within here too, but I'm only going to mark really big ones for clarity purposes for this lesson, right? And then you have something like this over here too, because again we're still on a bigger time frame. If you go to a small time frame, we might have some more information within here that we could actually mark this break level for, right? Because the whole purpose of marking these break levels is so we can know where our capital injection points are, because capital injection points are supposed to be above this level. So now again, between these two, some people mark this, right? Now we will learn as to which one should be marked in this case. Yes, this is the one that created the upward momentum, but sometimes you have break levels that are very close to each other like these, right? How do you decide which one is the more correct break level? We will talk about that as well a bit later in this lesson. But you know that other break level at the top that we were talking about on the monthly time frame, you know, this seems like a more clear break level, right? Because it obviously touched something and then created this upward momentum, right? So they look pretty good to me, right? And even if we draw a really quick uptrend, we don't have to be that accurate with it, right? So you have sort of like an uptrend like this, and then you have another uptrend like this. You know, I'm not really being that accurate with these trend lines, but all these levels that are close to you know, the complete of the swing is where I attach the trends. All of them that are close to these trends. In this case, this is not like very close to the trend. It's a bit far away, but it still is a break level, right? Because clearly touched something and generated the upward momentum. And another reason why this is not closer to trend, because the move is so aggressive, so that you have actually another trend that you would mark over here, right? In which case you could have a leg over here too, and it's trying to actually touch that. Like, do you see like how it came so close to touching this leg at the bottom, but it did not? This is why marking the legs you know, in a correct way is very, very important. So yeah, that's about it, I think, for marking break levels. Just the only thing I want to clarify is, if you remove all of this and we perhaps go to the daily time frame over here, and then I resume the replay tool, we'll mark some break levels actually within this current part of the cycle also. But between choosing two break levels, which one would be the right one to choose, right? Especially if the difference between them is too much, right? Because we want to be stopped out much sooner rather than later, and not be in with a bigger loss, especially if we're taking a big leverage trade. What is the purpose of marking the lower leg if we already know that it's going to rip through it, right? By the time it rips through this, let's say, and we already know there are no defenses left within here, no hold levels left within here, right? By holds, obviously I'm talking about capital injection points, right? Then what would be the purpose of me marking this? Because by the time it goes below this, it would already rip through this leg, right? So that's one way you could tell, but again, you have to go to a bigger time frame and check which one looks like a true leg. So in this case, let's cut this with the replay tool over here. So imagine the move is right here. So between these two, both of them, they look like legs. Because I went to weekly, I could even go to the monthly time frame. Do you see like this kind of completed the dump, but it also whatever the whole level was within here, right? It touched, it generated an upward momentum, then it came down again, and this wick over here also touched something, created the upward really strong bullish momentum. So this one is quite clear, but what about this one? Should we consider this or not? So in this case, what I would say is, like I previously mentioned, if I already know that in between these two there are no good hold levels left, I would probably consider the upper one, because by the time it rips through the upper one, it will rip through the lower one as well. And I think in terms of percentage, should be a big difference between, it's almost wait, let's double check. I mean, yeah, 2.5% is, it's quite big for a big leverage, right? So perhaps I would consider this upper one. Of course, in the next couple of lessons, you know, I would discuss these break levels a little bit more in detail, as to how we treat some break levels that could have turned into bases or origins. Okay. Now in the current part of the move, let's mark a couple of legs as well. Okay. So this is where Bitcoin is at the moment. And by the way, I did not mark any legs on the top side, so let's actually start marking the ones from the top, right? So for this to continue its upward momentum, it has to break these legs. So this one is a valid leg. There's another one over here, because you can clearly tell that it touched something probably within this candle, right? And it had a nasty rejection over here, right, by whatever percentage, and then it touched something else again and dumped the entire thing. So these are important legs on the opposite side of the chart, right? And then the legs that should not be touched at the bottom are all of these levels, okay, right here. Over here we run into the same dilemma as to which one is correct. So again, you see, we started on daily time frame. Ideally we should have started on the biggest time frame, right? So monthly, right? Again, not just one big candle over here, right? But right off the bat I can tell that, this is what started this upward momentum, and then we've got something like this, right? So then on the weekly time frame I can see that there's another one that actually started this upward momentum, right? So you have to sometimes switch between time frames to tell the actual break levels, right? So now it's a lot clearer, right? I could mark this, but looks like whatever it touched within here blew through all the defenses within here, but it does seem like there's probably an origin or a base over here, but that's another topic for another lesson, right? And we can mark this, and then this one also we were not able to see on the bigger time frames very clear. So there you go. These are all the actual break levels that we need to mark within this current part of the move. Okay, so if it wants to continue going up, it should not be touching any of these legs over here.